Howdy everyone, another day, another video, and today we're going to be discussing Jason more in depth and find strategies and techniques to win games more consistently. This video will not be discussing what his passives and abilities do, because I've already made a video for beginners which includes his abilities. This will more so talk about the best way to use his abilities, which will hopefully let you win more consistently with them. I'd like to exclaim more consistently. Jason cannot win every game by any means. He's not strong enough. But regardless, I hope you stick around and learn from this video. Without further ado, enjoy the video. Despite him being the starter killer, he's very difficult to play effectively. It doesn't help much either that he's debatably the weakest killer in the game. My argument being, his upsides are his slow terror radius, fast speed, great stamina management, and he has fairly decent anti-stun. However, he lacks a projectile, and if there's multiple sentinels, their stunts become overwhelming. Not to mention, he doesn't have anything to increase his speed like the other killers. John Doe having his traps, anti-stun, and wall, 1x4 having his entanglement and unstable eye, and Cool Kid having his corrupt nature to slow survivors down and walk speed override to catch up to them quickly. Because he has no projectile, he's extremely easy to camp, and extremely map situational to win. I'd say his maps from best to worst are Planet Boss, since you can abuse your small terror radius with all the walls. It's also the only map in the game without an infinite. Glass Houses, since it's a small map you can easily corner survivors in. Horror Hotel, since it's got a lot of walls you can appear out of nowhere from. And then unfortunately, Brandon Works and Yorick's Resting Place are just awful maps for Jason. Easily abusable infinites and they're too open in general. Maps aside, I'd like to talk about his abilities, and I'll give them a rating from 1 to 10. Starting with his M1s, they do low damage but high damage over time, and they're fairly fast. I like his M1s because I can hit other survivors and the damage over time does a lot of damage to make a real impact on the game. Unfortunately, his M1s are fairly weak in chase. Like, really weak. I'll have to give the M1s a 6 out of 10 on the power scale. It's not bad, but they're not good either. His ability, Behead, super duper mediocre, and I would argue it's probably the worst move for killer in the game. While it disables the abilities of survivors for 15 seconds, I feel like that's not really what it's used for. The harsh reality of Behead is that it's much slower than an M1 and does less damage overall if we account for the damage over time on M1s. Not to mention, even if you land or whiff the move, it applies slowness to you, making you give up some distance for no reason. The only redeemable thing about Behead is that you can basically skip the kill animation by using it to kill survivors. And it's technically just an M1 with a small cooldown since you can use it instantly after an M1. Also, during a sprint, it gives a slight speed boost that basically just increases the lunge range. Lastly, it can also hit multiple survivors, which is actually pretty good. Still though, I think Behead needs a rework, because it's by far the worst ability in the game. I'm giving it a 3 out of 10, because it doesn't do enough damage. Helpless really doesn't help most of the time, and as I said, the real uses are the extra distance you gain by using it or hitting multiple survivors, which usually isn't worth, because Gashing Wound is debatably his strongest ability. Gashing Wound is a large hitbox that initiates a combo on one person inside the hitbox. The downside is, it's hard to land and chase since it pauses all of your momentum. The upsides are it has anti-stun while it's active, and grants an extra 2 seconds of it after it ends. It also does insanely high damage, especially in Raging Pace. I believe there are 4 total ways of landing this move consistently. Of course, the first being confidence. If you're certain you'll land it in chase because you think they're gonna juke into you, it's a very strong ability. The second, and most common way to use it, is people on generators. Abusing Jason's small terror radius lets you sneak up on survivors who are working on generators, and usually they can't react in time as you land the Gashing Wound. The third is after someone whiffs an ability with a long cooldown, such as Chance Misfiring or Shadletsky's Sword and Turkey, or even Guest Block. The last and most effective way to use Gashing Wound is after baiting it with Raging Pace. I'll talk about that in a second. Overall, Gashing Wound is extremely versatile and extremely useful in a lot of scenarios. 8 out of 10. His last ability, Raging Pace, has extreme synergy with Gashing Wound. Let's talk about what I was mentioning a second ago. Raging Pace makes you fully immune to stun after a small windup, which means you can predict survivors who are trying to stun you and punish them with a 70 damage Gashing Wound, which is extremely brutal. I'd say this is probably the best use of Raging Pace, but there are 2 other ways. First, it can be used to find survivors with its aura rating, no duh. And second, it can be used to force a stamina lead. When it comes to looping Jason, nothing matters more than distance and having more stamina since he has no projectile, and Raging Pace helps Jason gain the advantage stamina-wise. So overall, Raging Pace is an extremely crucial ability to Jason's kit if used correctly. I'd say hypothetically, this ability in the strength meter is like a 9 out of 10. It's just very hard to use correctly. I don't think there's too much to talk about with this passive, since it kind of just synergizes with Gashing Wound, but it can be used to hide behind walls if you see survivors coming. His small terror radius is what makes him such a scary killer to go against, because you never really know when he's going to kill you. I'll give his passive a 7.5 out of 10, because it sets up super convenient positions for a killer that lacks being able to catch up to a survivor. Oh, and I think this is an important topic to cover, a priority list. Now, in my opinion, I think it's very important to take out stronger characters before worrying about anyone else, so the most important characters to take out in order are Elliot. Elliot is the bane of Jason's existence with his healing and ability to deny chase with Rush Hour. I recommend killing them as soon as possible. Builderman is second. I think Builderman is literally designed to make people never want to play Jason again. Since you can't take out the turret with a projectile, there are some disgusting spots that make it so you just can't kill anyone. If you can kill Builderman, do it quick. Noob isn't too important of a target since usually good players don't play them, but for those that do, you cannot let them live until Last Man Standing. Noob beats most killers in Last Man Standing, and Jason is not an exception. After that, it's not too important who you choose. I would say to go for characters that aren't as time consuming and you can easily secure kills on. 07 and Chance are two very easy characters to kill if you can catch up to them, which is great for time. As for Shadletsky, Guest, and 2-Time, it depends what they do. For Shadletsky, you have to commit to a chase with them if you land a hit, otherwise they'll just heal, so make sure you have time to chase them if you do. Guest is somewhat scary to go against this Jason, but it really just depends on the play. If you play well, Guest can die quickly to Jason, but it can also be the other way around, so be careful when you're chasing Guest. Don't commit too hard. Finally, for 2-Time, I only recommend going after them if you have a lot of time. Get them to their second phase, and then leave them for Last Man Standing. With all that said, here's a small clip dump of some Jason clips, and stay tuned for the end. Thank you so much for watching. I already have a lot more video ideas coming up, but I have some really cool news. I just hit level 100 with Shadletsky. I love this character, by far my favorite, and I think I want to do a guide with him. However, I also want to make a video on why I think Builderman is the best survivor in the game, because too many people are skeptical about my tier list. Please let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Should I make a Shadletsky guide, or should I show why Builderman is broken? I love y'all, and I'll see y'all soon.